Okay, it looks like we are now in the middle of page 13 of our notes. Alright, so find this page. It says summer of 1917. Remember, Kerensky's doing his best, I guess, but he's really struggling. And summer of 1917 is a disaster because, well, his offense is going terrible. The Russian army itself is deserting by the thousands. And the Bolsheviks, those communists, they make the first moves. Trotsky returns to Russia and Lenin's on his way. So here come the competitors. They show up and they declare the provisional government bourgeois. There's an early uprising against the government that fails, and the new Russian government is collapsing. So that's where we're at, right? Well, here you go. By September 1917, the provisional government has gone through 4 entire revisions, all with Kerensky. Now, Trotsky and the other Bolsheviks occupy the representative positions. So think of this. You have a socialist government whose primary positions are actually occupied by communists. That's kind of a conflict. Now, there are class wars raging in the countryside. That's a yellow one. You probably want to write that in the middle of 13. That means that the landowners are being targeted by the poor people. They're like, we're not going to take it anymore. The other problem is that the Russian citizens are still hungry. I'd write this down in yellow. No food. There's nothing to eat, so instead they feed off of Bolshevik propaganda. And we don't mean literally they're eating pamphlets and stuff. That means they're so desperate they will believe anything that the Bolsheviks are saying, and pretty much they're blaming the provisional government and Kerensky. Climax. Okay? Climax is Red October. October 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution. Strategy for the revolution is actually done by, remember the mastermind behind it, Trotsky. And this is what he does. He makes Kerensky so paranoid that he actually strikes out against the Bolsheviks. And the Bolsheviks are the new people's favorite. So now the Bolshevik uprising, when they strike back at Kerensky, looks like it's self-defense. And the people are like, oh, the poor Bolsheviks, let's protect them. So it's like walking over in front of your mom and dad and punching your brother real quick and having him punch you back real quick just as your mom turns and they're like, oh, look, he hit me. So you never see the first hit, but you see the second one. Okay? Now Kerensky falls for the trap. He orders the Bolshevik newspaper offices sealed, and when he wakes up the next morning, Kerensky finds his entire city surrounded by Bolshevik troops. Dun dun dun. Okay, so what you're missing is in yellow. Trotsky created the Bolshevik Revolution, and then the strategy was to make it look like self-defense. We are now at the bottom of page 13. Here you go. Bolshevik Revolution. It's so quiet that people don't even know there's a war. All they did was surround the city, and they pretty much give up. Now, Lenin, who is previously unknown to most Russians, he is given this title of Chairman of the People's Commissars of the Russian Soviet Republic, and he establishes the Communist Party. Those are your next 2 blanks. Lenin, okay, and he creates what? The Communist Party. Now, the first 3 things he does, I'd write these in as well. He gets Russia out of World War I. The people go, yay! He says, oh, the land is the property of the poor, or the proletariat. And they go, yay! And he sneaks this one in. The government power is in the hands of the Soviets. And I don't know what they said about this one, but they should have seen this one coming. So we're out of war. You get all the property, but we have all the power. See that? Smart, but not fair. Falling action now. We're on page 14. Top of 14, falling action. There's a brief civil war. And there's a fight between the whites and reds, or more accurately, Kerensky supporters, who are the whites, and the Bolsheviks, which are considered the reds. Now the White Army, this is something we won't necessarily read about in social studies, the White Army is actually supported by us, or the U.S. The Bolsheviks are fighting against capitalism, so we're going to fight against the Bolsheviks. And the U.S. fights the Red Army in Siberia, and we lose. And we have 150 people killed. Somehow that doesn't always make it into the history books. Now the Bolsheviks, worse, they execute the Romanovs. And it's a terrible thing. It sounds like, according to the myth, legend, rumor, they line them up for a family photo, get them all pretty, and then they go ahead and they shoot them and execute them all at once. Just terrible, terrible stuff. And the Civil War lasts until 1920. Okay? Now, here we go. 1922. Russia was officially renamed the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republics. Okay? Let's see. Lenin gives credit to Trotsky. He's like, oh, that Trotsky guy is great for staging the coup or the overflow and for managing the military. And Lenin also creates the Politburo, or the Political Bureau. And that's the policy-making body of the Communist Party. They elect this guy, Joseph Stalin. That's your next blank, Joseph Stalin, as the general secretary. This is the really bad dude that ends up taking over. So here you go. 1922, Lenin has a stroke, a series of strokes, and he steps back from power. He wants Trotsky to be successor. He says Stalin is too ambitious. He seems power hungry. We don't want this guy around, and he tries to get rid of him. But the other Bolsheviks were so jealous of Lenin and Trotsky being all buddy-buddy that they say, nah, and they set up Stalin to be next in line. And they're like, that couldn't be a problem, right? Well, the problem is, when Lenin dies, Stalin's ambition reveals himself, and he rules Russia from 1927 to 1953, very long time, with something we call an iron hand. He creates a totalitarian government. That's a word you've already had in social studies. Total control over everybody. He destroys all hope of forethought through the propaganda and fear, and he turns Trotsky into a scapegoat, or someone that you blame for everything. And he blames him for everything, so then Stalin, if things go bad, he's off the hook. And before his death, you have Stalin, who is actually responsible for the deaths of at least 20 million Russians. And not to downplay the Holocaust, we've talked about the Holocaust, which was tragic. Here you have Stalin, who actually kills many, many times more of his own people. So although Hitler was bad, you could consider Stalin even worse. And that, when we look for the really scary, terrible character in Animal Farm, that's probably who this is going to be. And with that, you should be ready to start Animal Farm. Good luck.